Imagine walking into your grandfather's garage and seeing a pickup truck that has been running for more than 20 years. The paint is faded, the seats are cracked, the odometer has rolled past 200,000 miles. Yet somehow, every morning, the engine still starts. It still drives. It still works.
Now compare that to many modern vehicles. Some owners are facing expensive repairs before reaching 100,000 miles.
Others are dealing with transmission failures, electronic issues, sensor problems, and repair bills that can cost thousands of dollars. As a result, more and more people are asking the same question. Why don't cars last like they used to?
The answer is more complicated than most people realize. Many people assume automakers simply stopped caring about reliability. Others believe manufacturers intentionally design vehicles to fail sooner.
While these explanations are popular, the reality is far more complex. Modern vehicles are the most advanced, safest, and efficient cars ever built. Yet many of the improvements that make them impressive have also introduced new weaknesses.
To understand what happened, we first need to understand how different older vehicles were.
30 years ago, most vehicles were remarkably simple compared to today's standards. Engines were larger. Electronics were limited. Touchscreens did not exist. Vehicles relied on fewer sensors, fewer computers, and fewer complex systems. Most repairs could be completed with basic tools and mechanical knowledge. Those older engines were not particularly efficient. They consumed more fuel. They produced more emissions. They generated less power compared to modern engines of similar size. But they possessed one major advantage. They were built with enormous safety margins.
Many older engines were understressed. Large V8 engines produced modest horsepower numbers and operated at relatively low internal pressures.
Components were often overbuilt. Cooling systems had extra capacity. Lubrication systems used thicker oils. The entire design philosophy prioritized durability over optimization. In simple terms, these engines were built to survive abuse. Miss an oil change, and the engine might still survive. Tow heavy loads, and it could tolerate the stress. Drive in extreme temperatures, and most of the time, it would keep going.
Modern vehicles operate very differently.
Today's automakers face challenges that manufacturers 30 years ago never had to consider. Governments require lower emissions. Consumers demand better fuel economy. Buyers expect more power, more comfort, more technology, and higher safety standards than ever before. Meeting all of those expectations has forced manufacturers to redesign nearly every aspect of the automobile. One of the biggest changes has been engine downsizing. Instead of using large, naturally aspirated engines, manufacturers increasingly rely on smaller, turbocharged engines. A modern turbocharged four-cylinder can now produce power levels that once required a V6. A turbocharged V6 can rival older V8 engines. On paper, this sounds like an engineering miracle.
Drivers receive strong performance while consuming less fuel. However, there is a cost.
But producing large amounts of power from a smaller engine requires significantly higher pressures and temperatures. Turbochargers force additional air into the engine. Combustion events become more intense. Internal components experience greater stress. The result is an engine that operates much closer to its limits than older designs ever did.
At the same time, manufacturers have reduced internal tolerances to improve efficiency. Modern engines use thinner oils and tighter clearances.
These improvements reduce friction and help achieve fuel economy targets. But they also leave less room for error. A tiny amount of contamination that might have been harmless decades ago can now become a serious problem. A brief interruption in oil flow can cause damage. A manufacturing imperfection can gradually develop into a major failure. The margin for error has become much smaller.
But engines are only part of the story. Perhaps the biggest difference between old cars and new cars is electronics.
Modern vehicles contain dozens of computers controlling everything from fuel delivery to transmission behavior. Sensors monitor temperature, pressure, emissions, steering input, braking systems, suspension settings, and countless other functions. These systems provide enormous benefits. They improve safety, fuel economy, comfort, and performance.
However, they also create new failure points.
When an older vehicle developed a problem, the issue was often mechanical and relatively easy to identify.
Today, a single faulty sensor can trigger multiple warning lights. A software issue can disable important functions. Diagnosing certain problems may require specialized equipment and manufacturer-specific tools.
Safety technology has also transformed the automobile, but every additional system adds complexity. More complexity means more components. More components mean more opportunities for failure. Consumer expectations have changed dramatically. Buyers expect more technology, more comfort, and more performance than ever before.